So when we slide this off, there you go. You heard them click. Okay, welcome back to another video. Today's video is by request. I needed to figure out what went wrong inside this starter. This starter is from a 2010 Cummins. If you didn't get to see the replacement for it, I'll post a link right here. This starter started to fail, became weak, and then it started to fail at times. So let's take it apart and see what happened. Now before I get to tearing this apart, I want to test it to see how weak it is. The right thing to do here will be to take it to some alternator or starter repair shop, have them put it on the bench and test it, and then they'd come out and they'd just tell me that, hey, it's weak and needs to be changed, or don't need to use this one anymore. However, I'm not going to do that, because really all you need is a set of jumper cables or a battery jumper. Now it just so happens that I recently resurrected the most discreet power jumper I've ever bought in my life. Ladies and gentlemen, here's my boost box. This thing right here, this beauty, was bottom of the line a decade ago, and it hasn't gotten any better since then. However, still works. So, are we going to use it? Yeah. So here's how I'm going to bench test this starter right here on my workbench. For most starters, your ground is going to be up here at the front. And then on the back here, you got your starter solenoid, and you have where your power will connect from your battery in your vehicle. And then this sends power down to the starter. So all we're going to do is we're going to jump the starter, and we're going to connect the power right here to this one. That's going to send power straight down to our starter. Now, if you're in a bind, and you think that this black piece, that it's gone bad, all you got to do is grab you something long metal. Wait. I think it's time we take a safety break here. When I say to use a metal rod, I do not mean to use something like this. This is a lady's finger. Completely metal. Okay? You need to find the longest screwdriver you got and use a screwdriver. Or at least something like a screwdriver that has a handle on it that is insulated. Okay? Here's the reason why. If you use a metal rod like this, that has no insulation on the handle, you will get a quick lesson in how electricity works. Electricity likes to take the path of least resistance, which will be this entire metal rod and you. So, if you're going to use something like this, I know it will be good because it's so long you can stick it in there and kind of stay away from all the sparking stuff that's happening inside there. However, if you do not insulate it in some sort of way, it will get you. That's why everyone will tell you to use a screwdriver. A screwdriver has the metal rod with some sort of insulation protection with the handle portion. So if you're ever out and you find yourself in this situation, be the hero. Don't be stupid. Make sure to like this video, hit that subscribe button. Back to the video. And just jump from here to here. Be careful now. It's going to spray a little bit of magic at you. So we got our ground, good. On. Oh. Here we go. And we have power. So now, let's take this apart and let's see what's going on inside. Alright, to get this apart on this starter, you have to take off these two 10mm bolts and these two screws that are connected to the communicator. This nut right here, you want to leave it on because when you're splitting this, the whole starter, you want just this cap to come off. Let me get these bolts out. Bolts are out. Now we gotta take these screws out. Now this cap will slide right over this black rubber piece. And there's our cap. Set that to the side. And here we have our brushes down inside there. These right here. These are your brushes. Now, in order to get this apart, we're going to have to take the brushes out. So this brush that's connected down here to the windings, we're going to have to take this brush out. Same on the other side. This brush is going to have to come out as well. How you take the brushes out is this little piece right here. This little piece right here. You'll have to lift it up. And slide it over, and then you can get the brushes out. This is held on by spring pressure. This piece is connected to this piece. So let me get these two brushes out. Okay, so as you can see, I got this brush out. You want to be careful not to mess the brush up because it's really fragile metal. The easiest way I have found is to get something to prop this up, hold this spring, and then pull it back, and then you're able to pull it out. Same thing when you're putting it back in, just like that, then you can slide it back in. Now let me take off the other side. On the other side here, we got the same brush that's connected down here, so this brush needs to come out as well. Pull it back, slide your brush out. There you go. Now, these brushes are just going to slide off, and they're held on by spring pressure as well. So when we slide this off, there you go. You heard them click. Just hold those brushes. There we go. This is your commutator that's on the end of your starter. There's a little bit of buildup on these brushes, but on this one specifically, what's tending to go bad on me is this armature. And what's happening is, you can see this right here, that should not look like that. This piece, this copper colored piece right here, is actually cracked and it's starting to lift up. So after investigating all of the contact points right here, that one is definitely the worst. That one's not too much better. This right here, you can see where the contact is coming off of the armature piece right there. Now, if this wasn't real bad, what I've done in the past is I have sandpapered this to clean it up, and then take this nut off right here, take this whole black case off, and make sure that all of your contact points that are on the rest of this armature is fine. And like I said, I did this before. Only one of these were bad, so we sanded it down, and then I was able to get 2 months out of it. And then I had to do it again, same thing. Now we're looking at 2 that are really bad. If you're at this point, honestly, it's better to just change it. But you can try and clean these brushes up, sand it, and it bought me another 4 months. So since we were already here, I decided to go ahead and clean this up, take it the rest of the way apart, so at least we can get some education out of it and we can really see what was going on inside this starter. So to get the armature out, I was talking about this nut right here, and this post is your motor post, and this is your battery post. So you can go ahead and take this motor post off, or take the nut off the motor post, and then the housing just comes right out. The armature itself will remain inside the housing, and that's what it would look like. So you take the housing off. So now we got the housing off, let's look at that first. So for this housing, you have your brushes. These are your fill brushes, and these stay on the housing. They don't come off. If you remember, on the commutator bracket, we had to pull these out so the commutator bracket could actually come off. You'll look inside here, make sure there's no gunk or any buildup, because if you get any fluids inside your starter, it could cause a problem inside there. Like I said, I've taken this apart twice now. This will be my 3rd time, and it still looks pretty clean. On the commutator bracket side, this is your commutator end bracket, and these have your earth brushes or your ground brushes. You want to take a look at those. They should have a little caved in inside. And then you have your points back here. And if you're going to reuse these or use the same one, then we'll grease up those points whenever we put it back on. And then here we have our armature, and then we have our commutator, and then this is your armature end bearing. Sometimes these end bearings can go bad. This one seems just fine. On my commutator, I know what's going on here is that you can see this piece right here. This is where I saw my problem. This should be smooth because of the way the brushes go across the commutator. So if we put the armature back in the housing, then we can see as it rotates around, what's going on here is these brushes are supposed to maintain contact while it's spinning. Now my issue is with this piece on the commutator, this copper connection point right here, it's actually skipping, and it's causing these brushes to jump, and that in turn is causing the starter to be weak and not want to start every time. They sell replacement brushes that you can rewire in, or they sell a whole commutator end. For mine, my commutator bracket, it's working just fine. Like I said, I've done this, cleaned it up, use some electric parts cleaner on these. Then I use some old 220 grit sandpaper to kind of just get all that old graphite off of it, so I could really get a better idea of what I was looking at. We can still see right there, that is a big jump. So I could just get a new armature, put it in there, and then maybe get a couple more years out of it if need be. But let's go ahead, put this back together. And we'll start with our starter end. You got your planetary gears inside there. This just goes right on the end here. That's in there. Now your housing piece will go right over it. You want to make sure to line up your starter, your motor connector. Put your nut back on. Now, this does have a seal right here. And what I would suggest is, if your seal is bad, to use some black silicone RTV around that to seal it up. That piece on there. As you can see right here, we've got a lot of the old silicone from whenever we took it off before. So I would just clean that out, because you don't want any fluids getting in between here and this cap. That's why this cap has this little drain on it. To put this back on, your commutator bracket end, your two earth brushes, you push them out. Like I said, be careful because they are made of graphite. It slides right on. Now we got to make sure that our field brushes go back in. Just set up. Put your pick underneath the spring, pull the spring back, and then the brush will slide right in. Release the spring, and there you go. Now that the brushes are back in, we'll put some grease, some dielectric grease on these contact points. Now that we got our grease on there, put our cap back on. Make sure our screws line up here. Then put our 10mm bolts back in. Okay, so we got a little gap right here. This is what I was saying. When you do, if you run in the same situation, You're going to want to put some RTV in there. And then this bolt will just compress down. Make sure it holds a good seal. Okay, so that's how we put it back together. Now, let's bench test it right here on the workbench. Now that we got this back together, hope you don't mind, but I'm going to bring the safety level up just a scotch. We got the starter in a vise, safety glasses on. I don't need all that magic fairy dust in my eye. So, you know what time it is? Got our power box. So, the reason why I'm using this box is because I know it's not going to put a lot of power to this thing. All we're doing is making sure that it rotates. So now, with the battery box off to the side, we'll connect our emotional cable. We got our power cable. Battery pack on. All the way charged. Here we go. So I'm looking at this. Maybe there's a reason why I put it in the camper and left it there for about 10 years. All right. Try number 2. Emotional cable. Check. Happy cable. Coming in. Yeah! So, although we can't get an accurate reading of how well this thing is doing, we do know that putting it back together and everything rotates like it should. Well, that's it for this video. If you're doing this yourself and it's just your commutator, it needs to be cleaned up, make sure you take the armature off and you rotate it and you have sandpaper on the commutator. And make sure the sandpaper is like 600 grit. And then rotate it in a circular motion and then get it nice copper shine. You'll be good to go. Put it back in, you're on your way. And as always, make sure you stick around the channel. You know what to do. Till the next video, I'm Buddy. Bye for now.